Hi guys, welcome back. So today I have our book review for you, and I wasn't actually going to do this, but then I was writing my review on Goodreads and realized I actually had a lot of things to say. So I decided that I'm going to give you a review of Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller. This just released in early November, and I had an arc of it, which I finally got around to reading this month. I'm going to try to make this not too spoilery, but if you're super sensitive to stuff, you know, you may not want to stay through the whole video. I'm not going to have spoilers for major plot points, but I'm going to discuss some things that I think are important to the book that are interesting. So, fair warning, if you're super sensitive and you don't want to know anything, this might not be the video for you, but I'm not going to give away any major spoilers. So, that being said, let's get right into this. Otherworld is a pretty interesting book. It is about virtual reality gaming. We have a main character named Simon, who is a rich kid with serious behavioral issues and really awful parents, which might be part of why he has problems, but he is a deeply flawed, damaged character. He has a really interesting voice, and honestly, when I was reading it, I was like, this voice sounds really interesting. Who wrote this again? Jason Segel? Is he who I think he is? And yes, he is. He's the actor. He's the guy from Freaks and Geeks. And I was like, oh, okay, I can totally see that. Which is kind of funny if you guys have seen Freaks and Geeks. Kind of a random side note, but that was a thought I had when reading this. So at the beginning of the story, his best friend slash kind of love interest cat, a childhood best friend, is mysteriously not talking to him. So he decides to buy her some really expensive virtual reality gear for this new amazing VR game called Otherworld in order to try to get her attention, which kind of works. Also, he engages in some seriously stalkerish behavior, which they sort of just write off because he's worried about her, and it turns out he was right to be worried about her, but it's kind of problematic, I guess, if you really think about it. As it turns out, it works out okay, but, there is that. He has issues. As the plot thickens, his main obsession is to protect Kat. And in some ways, I feel like that's the main thing keeping his humanity, because he's got, he is deeply flawed. What is interesting, though, is as the story progresses and his arc continues, maybe I should say before I get into this, I really enjoyed this book. It was a fun read. It was a quick read. It wasn't perfect. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I'm sure I'll talk about it briefly in my wrap-up, but it was really fun and it was really interesting and raised some interesting points, which I will get into shortly. But as the plot thickens, his main obsession is wanting to protect and keep Kat safe. Kat, however, feels like she does not need any help or any saving, and she is more concerned about other people. He eventually starts to care about other people, which was interesting. I think it could have been developed more. The characters could have been developed more. I wanted more from them, which is part of why I say it's not a perfect book. However, Otherworld is so rich and so interesting, and as a gamer, I really enjoyed it, and the book was so fast-paced that I didn't care too much, which is why it ended up with 4 stars. Now, what was unsurprising about this in a book about virtual reality gaming is that you get some discussion of the potential dangers of this kind of virtual reality technology as it continues to improve. Also, you deal with some things about AI, artificial intelligence, and the ethics surrounding that, which I thought was interesting, not unexpected. But the thing that really struck me as interesting about this book, especially as a gamer, is that it gets into sort of unveiling the nastier side of human nature and the fact that often when people think something's a game, they take it as an opportunity to just go ahead and indulge in these darker things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't. Violence, sex, addiction, cruelty, all of these different things. And the thing that this book explores really well, that I liked, was that especially when you start getting into better and better virtual reality, or you start to deal with artificial intelligence, those lines become very, very blurry very quickly. And so where is it a game and where is it reality, and what are you really doing, and what does that say about ethics and morals? So this is interesting to me because I know that some people who play RPGs, role-playing games on video games, I'm one of them. I don't know how many of you guys do as well with things like Skyrim or Dragon Age or Mass Effect. Many people sort of take it as it's a game, whatever, it's an opportunity to indulge in ethically problematic behavior because it's just a game. I don't take that tack. I follow a specific moral code in real life, and when I'm playing video games, I do my best to maintain a similar moral code. I feel like for me, my ethics need to be consistent as much as possible. And I mean, obviously, you know, there are things like killing enemies that I might do in a video game that I wouldn't do in real life. But in other ways, I try to maintain as much as possible the same sort of internal ethics and morals in my gameplay as I do in my life, and I feel like that consistency for me is really important. And like I said, this is a controversial issue and people have very different approaches to this, but I thought it was really interesting that they raised this issue in Otherworld, because it's true that as you begin to get more and more realistic gameplay, and as you begin to get the possibility of virtual reality gaming technology where it is so lifelike, and in this book you even have this possibility of engaging all 5 senses, so taste, touch, sight, hearing, all of these things, and not to like give anything in particular away, but there's even a part of the world where there are players engaged in cannibalism as part of the gameplay. So it's interesting because the more realistic it gets, you have to ask yourself, right? Like, at what point does it stop being a game and start being real? At what point does it stop just being a character you're playing and start becoming something that is inside of you that you are becoming or giving into, and like, where is that darkness going to go in your real life? And I think that that's an interesting question to explore. They could probably take it farther than they do in this book. It's a YA though, you know, so it's not too heavy, but that I thought was a really important question and something that I realized I had a lot to say about. So like I said, it's controversial. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fun. It wasn't perfect. They could have done more character development, but I'll definitely be picking up book 2. I think it's interesting. I think they asked some interesting questions. I think the voice is unique. I didn't like the characters all that much, but they were interesting and the world was pretty riveting. So for me, this was a relatively solid 4-star. I will say, if you're not into gaming, this probably won't be your favorite book, because yeah, if that kind of storyline with RPG video games and virtual reality and artificial intelligence, if that doesn't interest you, definitely not the book for you to pick up. But if that sounds interesting and exciting, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's worth a look. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this issue, actually, about morals and ethics in video games versus real life. Like I said, I know everybody's got different approaches to this, but for me personally, that's how I've handled it, and I'd be curious to know what you guys think, if you are gamers. Also, let me know if you guys read this book, if you had similar thoughts or different ones. I'd love to have a conversation about it. I thought it was an interesting one. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to see more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.